I never thought my own daughter would look me in the eye and insist that my house wasn't really mine anymore. She said it like a fact she'd rehearsed calm and steady, while her husband stood behind her, as if he owned the place. And if you've ever faced something like that, someone you love claiming what's yours, tell me your story in the comments. The door stuck for a second before it gave way, and that pause told me something was wrong. The living room didn't match the place I'd locked up a year earlier. A pale sofa replaced the brown leather one I'd bought after my divorce. New frames lined the wall. Pots and pans I'd never touched hung over the stove, like someone had been settling in for a while. Emily. The name left my mouth before I had a plan. No voice answered, only the faint shuffle of gravel outside cut through the stillness. Mr. Parker stepped up to the porch, leaning on one knee the way he always did. "So you're really back," he said. "I figured you'd rented this place out. Folks came and went for months." "It wasn't rented," I told him. The words felt heavier than I intended. His eyes shifted the way people look when they wish they didn't have to be the one delivering the news. "I've seen your daughter here since spring. Her husband, too. Looked like they were fixing the place up." That sentence landed hard. Not in the angry way, more like a slow tightening in my chest. I thanked him and stepped deeper into the cabin. Clothes I didn't recognize crowded the hallway closet. Dresses, men's jackets, scattered bags. Someone had arranged a vanity in the bedroom complete with makeup trays and a mirror propped against the wall. The safe I'd bolted into the closet years ago sat crooked, pulled away from where it belonged. A breath left me before I realized I'd been holding it. This wasn't a misunderstanding or a mix-up with the keys. Someone had lived here long enough to treat it as their home. My phone started buzzing. A missed call from community security. A text followed. "Do you want access to the backyard and front door footage?" I read it twice. The message didn't accuse or explain, just offered a direction. The kind people give when they know something but wait for you to ask. Standing there among furniture I'd never bought, I understood what needed to happen next. Keys slipped into my pocket. The door closed behind me without another look at the living room. Mr. Parker lingered near his fence, trying to catch my eye, but I kept moving toward the guard station down the road. Each step felt like a line being drawn, one I hadn't expected to cross on my first day back. The gravel crunched under my boots as the cabin faded behind me, replaced by the steady hum of the main road. A year away had changed my work schedule and my routines, but nothing prepared me for this coming home to a place that no longer carried my imprint. Hayes looked up from his desk the moment I walked into the security office. His eyebrows lifted as if he'd been expecting me. "Robert, thought you were still out with the federal job. What brings you here?" "8 months of footage," I said. "Rear yard, front entrance, everything you've got logged for my place." He straightened in his chair. "Your daughter came by a while back. Said she needed gate access to check on the cabin for you." The muscles in my jaw tightened, though I kept my voice level. "Did she show proof I asked for that?" He shook his head. "No, but she said it was family. People usually don't question that." His hand moved across the keyboard, bringing up the archive feed. The monitor filled with date-stamped clips. Boxes appeared first, Emily hauling them from her sedan, propping the door with her foot so Derek could follow with the speaker system. A tripod bag dangled from his shoulder like he planned to stay for months. More clips rolled past Derek, dragging weights across the porch. Friends laughing during Saturday gatherings, lights glowing through every window long after midnight. Hayes slowed the feed when a particular segment caught his eye. Derek pushed the bedroom door open with his elbow. The safe slid forward as he yanked it toward the hall, its base scraping the floor. Emily hovered behind him, speaking quickly. She turned her head away from the lens, almost deliberate, as if she knew the angle. My lungs felt tight, but anger didn't take over. Something steadier replaced it. Hayes glanced at me. You want a copy? All of it, I answered. Every clip from the past 8 months. He loaded the data onto a portable drive without further questions. The man had seen enough disputes in this community to recognize when a line was crossed. Once the transfer finished, he handed over the drive. Stepping outside, a familiar voice called from the far corner of the parking lot. Marisol Bennett leaned against her car, still in her scrubs, hair pulled back as if she'd just ended a long shift. "Robert Hale," she said. "Didn't expect to see you here?" A faint memory surfaced, rushing my mother to the ER last winter. Marisol guiding the gurney down the hall. "You off work?" I asked. "Finally, 12 hours straight." Her gaze dropped to the drive in my hand. "You gathering evidence? Just checking a few things." She studied my face for a moment. "Footage can be unforgiving. What you see there and what you're told at home rarely match. Take care with it." Her tone wasn't prying, more like someone who'd watched too many families break apart from secrets no one wanted to admit. She opened her car door, paused, and added, "If you need anything looked at from a medical angle, call me. This sort of situation, it can spiral in ways you don't expect." A quiet nod was all I managed. She drove away, leaving a faint hum in her wake. Back in my truck, the drive felt heavier than it should. The ignition clicked, lights flashed across the dashboard, and the monitor on the console connected to the device. Clip after clip loaded rapidly. One stopped me cold. Derek walked toward my office with a thick folder tucked under his arm. Not a box of decorations, not tools, documents. Emily followed him with a set of keys, glancing back over her shoulder, as though she wanted to ensure no one caught them. The urge to confront them surged, then drained as quickly as it came. Confrontation wouldn't solve this. Understanding their intent would. The truck's engine idled beneath me, steady and low. The play button hovered under my thumb, but the clip didn't resume. Enough had been revealed for now. A slow breath steadied my pulse. Hayes's comment echoed faintly, "People don't usually question family." The thought lingered longer than I wanted. Trust can be an easy thing to hand out, especially when the person asking has your last name. Pulling away from the office, the drive lay on the console like a sealed verdict waiting to be read. The drive back to the cabin didn't feel as long as before. A purpose formed with every mile, something sharper than frustration. Once parked, the door swung open with a soft creak, the kind that reminded me how long I'd been away. The place carried traces of someone else's routine shoes near the entryway, a half-used candle on the table, grocery bags tucked in a corner. None of it belonged to me. The desk in my office sat slightly angled, as if moved recently. Pulling the drawer open revealed a stack of receipts. The top one listed a purchase for a sectional sofa, the same pale one now sitting in the living room. Emily's name sat printed at the bottom, along with her card number. Several more receipts followed: wall art, cookware, a vanity mirror. Every item I'd spotted earlier had a matching bill. A folded slip of paper lay under the pen tray. A bank account scribbled in blue ink stretched across the page, not one I recognized. The handwriting looked rushed, like someone jotted it down before leaving in a hurry. Before the next thought settled, my phone buzzed along the desk. A voicemail notification flashed from Lindholm. His voice filled the room when I pressed play. "Robert, we need to talk. A filing came through yesterday concerning the cabin. Call me when you can." Another alert followed, an email from his office. Scanning it once was enough. Emily had submitted a request to be added as a co-owner, claiming she'd cared for her father regularly and maintained the property in his absence. A question crept up from a place I didn't want to visit. Had I given her reason to believe she deserved this? For years, money had been handed over without thought. She needed help with rent, I transferred it. She needed coverage for car repairs. I wired it. Avoiding conflict had replaced actual parenting, and maybe she'd mistaken that for an open door. A message popped up from Marisol. If you need documentation from the hospital about your mother's care, I can check what's legally releasable. Sometimes people claim health-related caretaking to justify property rights. Thanks. I'll look into it, I replied. The cabin lights flickered as I stepped into the hallway. Not a full outage, just a strain in the wiring. The bedroom door resisted slightly before opening. Long grooves streaked across the wood floor, clear evidence of the safe being dragged. Kneeling down, I ran a hand along the marks, fresh, not old wear. The closet door hung unevenly. The lock plate had been swapped with a flimsy replacement, the type sold in bulk at hardware stores. Whoever did it wasn't trying to conceal the change well. They simply needed quick access. A dull thud echoed from the back of the house. Not loud, but enough to catch my attention. The storage room door behind the porch sat ajar. Light flashed briefly from the gap, then vanished. Hello? The word left my mouth, already knowing no one would answer. Moving toward the storage area, the hinges gave a faint rattle. The moment my hand touched the knob, someone yanked the door shut from the other side. The latch clicked. The sound wasn't forceful. It felt almost cautious, as if the person didn't want to draw attention. The door gave way after a firm pull. Dust swirled as the stale air shifted. No footsteps lingered, no voices, no signs of a lingering presence. One item sat on the floor, an empty document box, the same size used for property deeds and legal files. Its lid lay tossed near a stack of old paint cans. A familiar chill crept up my neck. The documents that belonged in that safe weren't just financial, they tied the cabin legally to me alone. Whoever touched them had taken more than paper. A car horn honked distantly on the main road. The sound helped steady my nerves enough to keep searching the room, though nothing else suggested someone had been there recently. The storage shelves looked undisturbed, so the intruder came specifically for the box. Stepping back into the hall, the uneven glow of the flickering bulb cast a faint shimmer across the floor. More receipts scattered near the doorframe caught my eye. One listed a purchase made 2 days prior. That meant Emily or Derek had returned recently, maybe even today. The realization pressed hard against my ribs. They weren't just occupying the space, they were building a story, one where they could claim the cabin as theirs through routine and persistence. The slip with the bank account number burned in my pocket. The empty box stayed on the floor behind me. Both pointed in the same direction. Someone wanted access to assets that weren't theirs. Morning traffic flowed steadily through downtown Flagstaff when I pulled up near Lindholm's office. The building sat above a small row of shops, modest but well-kept. A receptionist guided me through a short hallway, and Lindholm waved me in before I had a chance to knock. "Robert, sit down," he said, pulling a folder from his desk drawer. "You need to see what came through yesterday." The documents spread across the desk looked clinical typed statements, notarized forms, appended photographs. Emily's signature appeared on every page. "She filed for joint ownership," he continued. "Her claim is based on a long-term caregiving relationship. She listed regular visits, financial contributions, and upkeep." He tapped one sheet. "Here are photos of the cabin. New furniture reorganized, rooms, receipts attached. She's framing it as evidence that she maintained the place in your absence." My eyes drifted to an image of the living room. The pale sofa, the wall art, the cookware I didn't buy. Items I'd held in my hands only yesterday now sat printed in a legal packet as proof of her involvement. Lindholm leaned forward. If she and Derek assert they lived there as their primary residence, they could argue the property is part of a shared family estate. It's a loophole, but people try it. A tightness pushed through my chest. "She planned this," I muttered, not sure if I intended the words aloud. He didn't dispute it. "There's strategy here. Timing, documentation, narrative. It wasn't spontaneous." My phone vibrated on the desk. A message from Hayes flashed. Someone returned to the cabin last night. Got a plate number. That short line hit harder than I expected. Lindholm glanced at the screen. More activity. Looks like it. He clasped his hands. Robert, you're in a vulnerable spot. If we don't restrict access, they could keep modifying the property or altering documentation. Every change strengthens their argument. So what's the next step? We file for an emergency freeze. It stops any further claims modifications or residence assertions. It also gives you room to build a response without them moving the goalposts. The idea offered some relief, though not much. Do it. I'll draft it now. You should also secure your financial ties, any shared accounts authorized users' recurring transfers. The suggestion hit a sore nerve. Those transfers over the years, tuition, rent, medical bills, had felt like gestures of responsibility. Now they sat twisted into something else. Lindholm slid a few more documents forward. This is the damage. If we don't act fast, they could stage more contributions, more receipts, repairs, upgrades. It's easier to claim a place when you've filled it with your belongings. His matter-of-fact tone steadied me. Facts had a way of clearing the fog. After signing the initial set of forms, I stood to leave. He walked me to the door. Robert, prepare yourself. This will get messy before it gets better. Walking down the hallway, the weight of those words settled in a familiar place, the one reserved for truths you can't escape. The street buzzed with movement. Delivery trucks idled. A cyclist maneuvered between parked cars. Normal life carried on while mine veered off into a legal maze I never anticipated. Leaning against my truck, I opened Hayes's attachment. The picture had been taken at night, slightly blurred but readable. Derek's license plate stared back at me. The second photo made my stomach shift. A cardboard file box sat in the back of his trunk, identical to the empty one I found in the storage room. The angle captured just enough of the shape for recognition. A few seconds passed before I realized my hand had tightened into a fist. Not from anger, but from clarity. That box didn't move itself. Someone loaded it with intent. Several people crossed the lot near me, heading toward their errands. Their footsteps blended into the muffled hum of the city. The world didn't pause just because mine had tilted. The screen dimmed, and I unlocked it again out of habit. A calendar reminder blinked across the top, an open slot later today. Using that moment, I scrolled to the county's website and booked an appointment at the Coconino Records office. If something had been taken, I needed the original paperwork verified as intact. The appointment confirmation pinged my inbox. Standing there beside my truck, the morning sun rising over the rooftops, one thought kept circling back. If they'd touched that box, what else had they been willing to handle? The Coconino Records office sat tucked between two county buildings, plain and functional. A clerk waved me forward when the counter cleared. She asked for my ID, then pulled the property file from a back drawer, the folder thicker than I remembered. I need to confirm there have been no legal changes to ownership, I said. She flipped through the documents with practiced movements. Your title remains untouched, she replied. No amendments, no transfers, nothing pending. Her tone shifted slightly. But someone tried to schedule an appointment to view this file last week. They weren't authorized. Name. She angled the logbook my way. Derek's name stared back at me, written in block letters, as if he thought bold strokes could replace permission. He insisted it was urgent, she added. We declined the request. A tight breath left me. She printed a certified copy, stamped it, and slid it across the counter. This should help with any legal steps you're taking. Stepping outside with the envelope under my arm, I reached the truck and stopped short. A notice clung to the windshield, thin paper typed in a bland county font report of unauthorized occupancy under review. A faint red line drawn beneath the text stood out. Not a county mark. someone's personal touch. The paper rustled in my hand as I pulled it free. Whoever placed it there wanted me unsettled, unsure of where the threats were coming from. It worked for a moment longer than I'd like to admit. The drive toward the diner gave me space to think, though the thoughts weren't comforting. Emily had pushed hard to build a version of events where she looked like the dependable daughter, the one stepping in for a father who in her mind hadn't been present enough. Derek, meanwhile, seemed eager to feed any story that opened a path to resources. By the time I parked outside the diner, Marisol was leaning against her car, stirring a small bottle of electrolyte mix. Her eyes lifted when she spotted me. "You look like you've been carrying a weight all morning," she said. "Rough day." "Someone posted a warning notice on my truck," I answered. "There's more going on than I realized." Or... She studied my face. "Is anyone trying to flip the situation, build a case where you're the one causing trouble?" I hesitated, then gave a brief explanation of what Emily had filed. Her response came without hesitation. "When people start collecting evidence, they're not doing it to explain themselves. They're doing it to push you into mistakes. Don't let them." She wasn't judging, just naming what she saw, with the blunt certainty of someone who'd watched families unravel for reasons that never made sense from the outside. "Thanks," I said. "Just stay ahead of it." She tossed the empty bottle in a bin and headed to her car. "You know more than they think you do." Her words lingered as she pulled away, the engine fading down the road. My phone buzzed again, this time a long text from Emily, lines accusing me of being cold, distant, unconcerned with family ties. Her language mixed resentment with wounded pride, like she needed to justify the decisions she'd already made. An email from Derek followed paragraphs claiming he and Emily had invested time and money into the cabin, that I didn't respect their commitment, and that they felt misunderstood. Scrolling through the messages, I felt something shift. Not anger, something heavier and more complicated. Maybe a realization that my absence over the years carved a space they filled with their own narratives. None of those narratives justified what they'd done, but understanding the roots didn't soften the blow. Another call came through Lindholm. "Update for you," he said. "The court is reviewing the emergency freeze, but they want more evidence of unauthorized residence and interference with personal property, especially the safe." "I can get that." "I know you can," he replied. "Just be methodical." After the call ended, I replayed last night's footage on my console. The grainy timestamp flickered through the darkness until Derek's silhouette appeared. He slipped toward the storage room with a narrow envelope in his hand. He glanced over his shoulder, then disappeared beyond the door. The recording froze on the last frame, his arm extended, the envelope pinched between his fingers. The stillness of that image hit me harder than anything else I'd seen so far. Someone who believed they belonged in my home wouldn't need to sneak around with documents. Someone who believed their actions were justified wouldn't keep returning after being confronted. The footage ended, leaving only the soft hum of the truck. My hand rested on the console for a moment, long enough to steady a thought that had been forming since morning. Whatever they'd put in motion was accelerating, and hesitation wouldn't slow it down. Hayes met me near the rear gate before the morning rushed in. He held a tablet loaded with high-speed footage from the night cycle. "Take a look at this segment," he said, scrolling to a timestamp just after dusk. Emily appeared first, walking toward the service lane with a tote bag hugged close to her ribs. A man stepped from a parked sedan and spoke to her briefly. She handed him the bag without hesitation. He returned something smaller, hard to identify, then left through the restricted exit. "Not a resident," Hayes added. "Ran the plate. Doesn't belong to anyone registered here." "What's in the bag?" "No idea. But she wasn't hiding the exchange." The possibility that the tote held documents or a tool to tamper with the safe settled in my stomach like a weight. The exchange looked practiced, not impulsive. Hayes tapped a button and handed me a printout. This is the plate number for the man she met. The paper burned against my palm more than the morning air did. My phone rang before I reached the truck. Lindholm's voice arrived without preamble. We have a new problem. Emily filed a counterclaim. What kind of claim? She's alleging diminished mental capacity on your part. According to her affidavit, you've been unstable for years, and she stepped in to manage things. A pause stretched between us long enough for the breath to leave my chest. She told them that, yes, and the court takes those accusations seriously if they come with supporting statements. She's trying to justify joint control of your assets. The world didn't tilt, but something inside me did. Every moment I'd stayed silent to keep peace. Every time I'd let her complaints slide. Every bill I'd covered without questions. All of it had been reshaped into proof that I couldn't manage my own affairs. Robert, Lindholm continued, this isn't a misunderstanding. She's building a narrative. Ending the call left me standing there with more noise in my head than I wanted to acknowledge. The phone buzzed again, Marisol. I saw your missed call last night, she said. What's going on? They're claiming I'm not mentally competent. A sharp breath sounded on her end. When clients or families make that move, it's never spontaneous. It means they've rehearsed the story long enough that it sounds reasonable to them. Don't let it throw you off balance. It already has. I know, she said softer now. But stay grounded. Facts matter. Stories fall apart when you start pressing them. Her steadiness helped more than I expected. We hung up after a few more minutes, and I drove toward the cabin needing answers from the place where this started unraveling. The door hinges protested lightly as I stepped into the hall. A faint scrape along the floor caught my attention. The safe sat where I'd left it after dragging it back, but the dust ring around its edges had changed. Several streaks cut through the layer that had settled there, clean tracks, indicating someone attempted to move or open it earlier that same day. My fingers traced the smooth lines. Someone had used a cloth or glove to wipe the rim. A voice floated from the porch. Robert, you, home. Derek appeared near the steps with a casual grin plastered across his face. We stopped by to check on some paperwork. Didn't want anything important getting damaged while you sort things out. I asked. Me and Emily. We're trying to help you figure out what belongs where. The forced warmth in his tone clashed with the mess around me. My hand moved to the door, pushing it shut behind me. A click of the lock ended the conversation before he could say more. His voice kept going for a moment, then faded when he realized I wasn't engaging. Walking back through the cabin, the urge to put distance between myself and their intrusion grew sharper. The envelope they'd wiped the safe for whatever it held wasn't here now. Driving away, the pines thinned until the road opened. A new notification buzzed against the console. No sender name. Just a single image. The cabin's storage area glowed in the background. Derek stood near the doorway with my property deed gripped between his fingers. A second hand belonging to someone out of frame held the opposite corner. Not Emily's hand, larger, rougher, wearing a ring I didn't recognize. A third party. Someone else had been coaching them, assisting them, or benefiting from this entire scheme. The thought tightened something deep in my chest. Not fear, just clarity. These weren't accidents or small misjudgments between a father and a daughter. A plan had been set in motion long before I came home, and I'd stepped into the middle of it. Lindholm cleared space on his desk, spreading out forms, while I transferred the drive filled with Hayes' footage. This is enough to file a counteraction, he said. Unauthorized residents tampering with secured property involvement with an unknown third party. It establishes a pattern. Use everything, I told him. He nodded once, already typing. I also want you to document the altered interior. The court needs visual proof that they modified the property without permission. That strengthens the argument that they intended to assert ownership. Hayes agreed to meet me at the cabin that afternoon. He stood by the truck when I arrived, camera slung over his shoulder and a clipboard tucked under his arm. Ready? He asked. We walked through the cabin room by room. Hayes photographed the scraped floor where the safe had been dragged, the swapped lock plate, the new furniture, and the kitchen stocked with items I'd never purchased. He didn't comment, just recorded, measured, catalogued. A shout thundered across the yard before we finished. Derek stormed up the steps, face red, shoulders squared, like he'd been practicing indignation. You can't just barge in here, he barked. You're invading my wife's life, her space. Hayes raised his phone and tapped the record button without waiting for instructions. This is my property, I said, and you've been living here without permission. You abandoned your family, he snapped. We stepped in. We kept this place running. Emily hurried up behind him. The moment her eyes met mine, she burst into tears, clutching her sweater as if she needed an audience. We only wanted a place to land, she cried. You're never around, Dad. You left us. What were we supposed to do? Her voice shook, but the timing felt too practiced. Each sob fell exactly where Derek needed it to. Hayes shifted his camera toward her. Neither of them noticed. I'm collecting my documents, I said. After that, you both need to leave. There's a temporary seal in progress. You can't throw us out, Derek snapped. We've put time into this home. You put time into someone else's house, Hayes muttered, but loud enough for the recording. Emily stepped closer, still crying, but her tone slipped for a second, sharper than she meant it to. We didn't even use all of it. That envelope Derek gave that guy wasn't everything. The sentence landed with more force than any accusation they'd thrown my way. She froze as soon as she realized what she'd said. Derek shot her a warning glare. A puzzle piece clicked into place the man from the rear gate. Not a friend, not a neighbor. A debt collector or financial broker tied to Derek's past. Someone they were trying to impress or pay back with documents that never belonged to them. I gathered the remaining papers from my desk, sliding them into a folder. You have 24 hours, I said. After that, security and law enforcement take over enforcement of the seal. Emily's crying quieted to a shaky breath. Derek's jaw clenched. Hayes backed toward the door with his camera. We've got what we need, he said. The three of us stepped into the yard. Emily stayed near the porch, wiping her face with her sleeve. Derek followed me to the truck like he intended to continue the argument. Robert, he growled, you think this ends with some paperwork? You think you're going to win? Hayes positioned himself a few feet behind him, capturing everything. I opened the truck door. Derek slammed his palm against the frame. You hear me? You won't win. We're not done. No answer came from me. The lock clicked under my thumb as I pushed the door shut. His hand dropped away when the engine rumbled. The gravel shifted under the tires while he shouted something I didn't bother to catch. The cabin shrank in the rearview mirror, but the sentence Emily let slip echoed louder than any threat Derek tried to throw. There was someone else tied to all of this. Someone Derek trusted enough to hand over an envelope that might have contained my property deed. That third hand in the photograph wasn't a coincidence. It was a partner in their plan. My phone rested near the gear shift. Without looking at the road long enough to second-guess myself, I pressed Lindholm's number. We need to expand the claim, I said when he answered. There's evidence my documents were transferred to a third party. Understood, he replied. We'll act on it immediately. Derek's voice faded behind me as the truck picked up speed down the mountain road. The court order arrived before sunrise, an email stamped with a judge's signature and a long list of restrictions. Every claim Emily had submitted was suspended. The cabin fell under full protective seal, and all access digital physical financial shifted back to me with immediate effect. A second notice followed this one from the Civil Investigation Unit. Derek was now under review for document tampering, attempted fraud, and transferring property materials to an unauthorized third party. Emily's name appeared in the section about unlawful occupancy and aiding the attempted transfer. None of it brought satisfaction. It just confirmed what had been true for months while I wasn't home. Lindholm suggested one final meeting to close the loop. His office felt smaller than usual, though nothing had changed in it except the weight of what we were about to end. Emily waited near the window, arms folded, gaze fixed somewhere beyond the street. She didn't greet me, didn't flinch. When I sat down, she spoke first. "I had my reasons," she said. No apology, no hesitation. The sentence floated between us without anchor. Lindholm slid the final documents across the desk termination of her access to the cabin removal from all utility accounts, withdrawal from tax filings, and a formal notice blocking any future claims unless approved by a court. My pen moved without pause. Not a single line drew questions from me. Emily watched, jaw tight. "You don't even want to hear why?" she asked. No answer came. Words wouldn't fix anything. Explaining would only reopen ground that needed to close. When the last page was signed, Lindholm gathered the folder and excused himself to file the paperwork. Emily reached for her purse, though she didn't stand yet. "I thought stepping in was the only way I'd have a place in your life," she said. "I thought you owed me that." Still nothing from me. Her expectation hung there looking for something I couldn't give. She rose without another word and left the office. The door clicked shut behind her, light and thin as a sheet of paper. Outside, the late afternoon pushed a soft breeze through Buffalo Park. Marisol waited near a bench, hair tied back, a thermos cupped in her hands. She'd asked to meet after her shift. "You look different," she said when I joined her. "Not lighter, just settled." "I don't know what I am," I admitted. "You protected what was yours," she replied. "Sometimes that's all someone can do." People wandered along the trail, families, runners, a couple walking their dog. None of them knew anything about the months I'd just lived through. It felt almost strange to stand among them carrying a story that would never make sense if told out loud. Marisol rose for her next appointment. "Take the weekend for yourself, Robert. Do something that belongs only to you." She left before I could answer. Work resumed that Monday. Reports, inspection, site evaluations, the ordinary rhythm returned without ceremony. Colleagues asked how the trip home had gone. I kept the answer simple: productive. Weekends changed. A reservation opened at a climbing course near Sedona, something I'd put off for years. The first session left my arms trembling and lungs burning in a good way. The instructor talked about grounding your weight before moving upward. For a moment, that advice felt like it belonged somewhere else in my life, too. The cabin remained locked under my name, its new seal printed in bold across the county's registry. A maintenance crew checked it monthly. No residents allowed, no exceptions. Rumors drifted in from Flagstaff. Emily had gone to stay with a friend 2 towns over. Derek lost his job after HR received notice of the investigation. Creditors tracked him down soon after. None of it surprised me. I didn't seek updates. They reached me anyway, the way news in small communities tends to travel. Each piece of information passed through me with less weight than the last. One evening after work, I stopped by the trailhead overlooking the Red Rock Ridge. The sky carried the last of the day's color, as understated as everything else in my life now. I sat on a boulder, letting the silence settle around me, not heavy, not sharp, just present. The choices behind me were fixed. The path ahead didn't need a name yet. When the breeze shifted, I stood and headed back to the truck, ready to drive home and plan the next climb.